Abdominal bracing pattern. This is a coordination between the hip flexors and the abdominals. Whenever we move our legs, particularly in this situation is going from extension to flexion into flexion, the pelvis has to remain stable. The abdominals have to hold the pelvis in a stable position. So we're not going to get in detail of which muscles are firing and from the transverse abdominis or the external obliques. Just going to keep it basic on what we're going to look for from a compensatory standpoint to a stability standpoint. And we're going to take you through the 5 levels of progression. So the first level of progression is going to be a heel slide. This is 1A, and Cassie's going to slide her left heel out and coming back up. So what we're looking for here is abdominal contraction or tone in the abdominal or bracing. We don't want to see any movement in the pelvis at all, or in the sagittal plane, anterior posterior tilting, or rotatory plane. So Cassie's going to show us what a compensation is with back arching. So as she extends, her back elevates up, creating extension in her back. You can come on out of that. So that creates lumbar extension, and the pelvis is tilting forward, so the abdominals are not controlling the pelvis to stay stable while we're getting isolated hip movement. So again, it requires lengthening of the hip flexors, and if the hip flexors are tight and or stiff, then you'll have a compensatory arching of the low back because the abdominals are not as strong or they're not as stiff as the hip flexor. So go ahead and do that one more time in the sagittal plane arching. So as she slides her heel down, the abdominals will arch. We're going to look for that compensation or that lack of compensation, hopefully, in both sides symmetry through all 5 levels. The other compensation is the transverse plane of pelvic rotation. So as Cassie slides her heel, we're going to look for any compensatory rotation of the pelvis and coming back up. And it's the same reasons. The hip flexor muscles are tighter, the abdominal muscles are either weak or less stiff. Particularly in this case, when we externally rotate, we're going to look at the obliques as more suspect. So that was level 1A. Level 1B is when we alternate heel touch. Okay. Come up and down. Good. The difference is from the heel slide, we actually support the weight of the leg as she extends up and back. Now we're taking the lever arm and increasing it by keeping the knees at 90 degrees and alternating. Alternating is another progression. You can actually degress and just have somebody do single legs and then switch to the other side. So alternating is a little bit more difficult. So that was level 1B. Level 2 is starting up into a 90 hip position, 90 degree hip position, and a 90 degree knee position. And we're going to alternate heel touch, maintaining. Very good. Again, looking for good stability in the torso, good relaxation in the upper body, and breathing, normal breathing. Okay, go ahead and continue here, just a couple more. Good. The same thing is going to be rotation of compensation or extension. Also look for, as she drops this leg here, that they'll pedal in here. Now that's going to assist the abdominals in stabilizing the pelvis. So I'm not looking for a bicycle action. Keep your knees 90, so 90 extends. Yeah. There you go. And then back up and down. Good. This is a good exercise. It's just not as challenging as if we keep the hips at 90 degrees. Okay, it forces the abdominals to stabilize a little bit more. Level 3 is a leg extension. Again, that is increasing the lever arm, and you can extend this leg. And we're going to look for the same stability. Nice and relaxed. Very good. How are you feeling? Good. You're feeling some work down here? Awesome. Good. That was level 3. Level 4 is actually having 90 degrees and double heel touch. Okay? So obviously the difference is doubling the weight because we're going double leg. That becomes more challenging for people. That's where you'll start to see really that anterior tilting. And then level 5 is double leg extension and back. Now, as you can see, we're going to go at this angle. To make it more difficult, we can actually go lower, and that makes it much, much tougher. Not a lot of people can do level 5. It takes a lot of core stability. You got to make sure that the hips are free. So I don't recommend you jumping right into level 5 right away. Somebody really has to be in connection with their midsection so that there is no pressure on the low back or any arching. Always ask, unfortunately I didn't ask Cassie how she was doing throughout this whole process, but you're always going to ask throughout each repetition, how is it feeling? They should be feeling a nice tone in their abdominals and absolutely nothing in the low back. Because even if the pelvis is not moving, there's still a lot of force, a lot of shear force on the lumbar spine and compression as they move their legs. So that they could be feeling in the back but looking nice and stable. So it's very important to get that feedback. If Cassie was getting force in her low back on level 5, then we would go back to level 4 so that she would eliminate that, and then the focus becomes in the abdominals again. And that's your progression for abdominal bracing pattern.